Hello, I am Mbweha. You can call me Ben of Team Relentless, and this is the Invader League Season 8 Round Robin Meta Snapshot. And without further ado, I'm going to switch my screens over here, and we're going to start talking about some data. So this link to this spreadsheet is available in the description and was possibly in the post for however you navigated to this video. And there are, I'm going to call your attention to two tabs down here. There's a synthesis tab and there's a round robin data by hand tab. This is, some of you might be familiar with this, with me putting together this meta snapshot. Some of you might not, but basically it's pretty all-inclusive, but not necessarily entirely. But I'm going to go through these numbers and we're going to see if we can learn some things about where the meta's at right now in Invader League. Side note, I guess if you don't know what Invader League is, you should know that it is the largest Star Wars Legion tournament out there. There's tons and tons and tons of games that happen in about a month, and players are not restricted by price or geography, and so you can really kind of see what people are playing and what's working well. So here we go, Invader League 8 round robin faction analysis. Up here, the first category we're looking at is the composition of the factions, and you can see that Empire was a lot more popular than maybe you thought it might have been, and then clones a little bit less, and everything else kind of where you would expect. The droids and rebels just over 25%. That's not that far away from that 25% what we'd expect if we were robots and everyone played in an equal number of factions. Way lower for clones and way more for Empire though than I personally expected going into this. I was surprised by this. Every once in a while I'm going to flip over to the Season 7 data from last fall for comparison. Like right now I'm going to do that. Ta-da! So compared to the fall, the meta has shifted dramatically where Empire is a lot more popular. I don't know if I would necessarily say that they're better, but they're more popular than they were. So you can see that sort of shift from 7 to 8 over there with the faction breakdown. Looking at the win-loss rate, everything looks good for Season 8. Everybody's right around 50%. There's no really significant, oh my gosh, one faction is just dominating all the other factions. Not at all. Not the case. And those of you, I guess, who have already been looking at the meta in general and are active and talking online about kind of where the game is at right now, most people would say that the game is maybe as balanced as it's ever been. And what we're going to see is that for the most part that this data will support that. Compared to Season 7, you can see there was this big, oops, we made Rebels maybe a little bit too strong, and Empire not so much for where it was at in the fall. So that's all been fixed. They nerfed buses a bit and made some corrections with the last rules update and put things really in a good place. Interestingly, if you look over here at the 5-0 rate, so this is theoretically the players that are not just advancing to single eliminations, but crushed it in their round robin group. They won all 5 games. There were 23% of GAR players went 5-0. So while GAR is the lowest in its popularity overall, it is the most dominant by the players who are choosing to play, and they have the highest win rate as well. But it's, again, I don't think that's statistically significant that it's a 52% win-loss rate there. But this is significant. That is quite a bit higher 5-0 rate. So people who are playing GAR are playing it really, really well, which is remarkable. I would expect it to be more around the 10% or less. I think that's what it was last in the fall. Again, the Rebels were whoa, 15%. Well, this is even more than that, right? So GAR is dominating by the people who really, I think, know what have a lot of experience with it, would be the way to say it, I guess. Average acts right here, you can see they're down quite a bit from what you might have expected in the past. Rebels coming in with the most, actually more than droids, which is kind of surprising. And then looking at the bids, there's nothing really that stands out to me about the bids other than to say that the adjustments they made to the battle deck have fixed bidding for the most part. We're not seeing those giant bids. Again, for the sake of comparison, flipping over here, we saw a higher number of acts on average previously and way higher bids, with the average bid for droids in the fall being almost 15 points, and so now we're not seeing that. All right, that's the first section. Let's go down and look specifically just at the players who are advancing to the single elimination. So this is, I think this is important to look at because we're not necessarily just looking at what's popular here, we're looking at what did well. And now we can see some interesting things. So the advancement rate, this is the advancement rate of, so it's this number divided by the number of people who played in the faction, right? So there are 10 GAR players advancing out of the 26 GAR players who participated in round robin. So that makes 38% of GAR players advanced to single eliminations, which is outstanding. And Empire 36%, Rebels 31%. And then droid players are the lowest, which I think what happened was Magna Guards and Spider Droids were so that the community online was like, this is the best, oh my gosh. And I think everybody went out and played it, which we'll see in a minute how that turned out. But everybody went out and played Magnas and Spider Droids, and possibly without necessarily like a lot of practice with those things. Those are good units. But I think it resulted in a big wave, and what is popular is not necessarily going to be the most effective thing at advancing. So a little bit lower there for droids, which is interesting. But the win rates of the advancing players, you can see, again, the Clone Wars factions of the advancing players, they're doing, they're basically kicking rear ends more effectively than the Galactic Civil War era factions, which is interesting. I don't think that's good or bad, but it's definitely there in the data. We can see that GAR and CIS players are doing they're cleaning other players' clocks more often when they're advancing. They weren't cutting it close with their advancement, I guess would be another way of saying it. And again, the 5-0 rates, with 60% of the advancing GAR players went 5-0, and almost 60% of the advancing droid players went 5-0, whereas only a measly 18% of the Empire players who are advancing went 5-0. So we would say they're less dominant, perhaps, even though the raw number of Empire that's going to advance to single elims is greater. They didn't win by as great of a margin. I'm going to scroll up a little bit, so prepare your eyeballs. I want to try to compare this is, again, right here, this is the average acts for everybody, and this is the average acts for players who are advancing. And when you compare these numbers, you can see that there's not much that would be of statistical significance here. There's no big differences. And then this was the average bid by faction for everybody in round robin, and this is the average bid for advancing players. And this, I would say there's significant things to note, and that's mainly that GAR and droid players do have significantly lower bids on average for the advancing players compared to their peers who did not advance. And you can actually see the Empire players had a larger bid, the ones who advanced, compared to their peers, and then Rebel also had lower. So the players who advanced, on average, with the exception of Empire, had lower bids than the players who did not advance. So that, more evidence to say that, red player is great. A lot of people just say, I'm not worried about it, and they just play as red. And there you go. And I have mixed feelings about that to some degree. I miss some aspects of the blue player days, but I definitely prefer where we're at right now than to having the insane 15, 20 point bids. All right, this is where we look at the list archetypes. So if I'm going to flip over to the other data sheet for a hot second, what I've done is I've gone through and I've got every player, and it's hyperlinked to their list. It's what group they're in. It's if they advanced. It's their wins, their losses. Nobody had any ties, but the points they scored, their faction, and then I assigned 2 list archetypes, and it's right now it's zoomed in so you can see it on your screen. It's also got the acts and the bids in it. This is where certainly some human bias may come in a little bit. I don't have the background in code to be able to automatically sort everything out like list-wise and know the exact number of NPL 57s that were used. What I do is I went through every list and I said, okay, what is this list? What are its archetypes? You know, Trauma Dog played Dooku with double flamer DSD and double RPS Magnas, and that was really, those are the things that defined his list. He didn't have B1s with a bunch of heavies in it or anything like that. Like these were his key pieces. So I enter all that by hand, and so if I make a mistake, then that would be messing things up. So that's where this information is coming from. This has been sorted by the advancement rate. So in other words, 57% of players who played Palpatine advanced to single limbs, which I would say is significant. And you can see that they had a almost 60% win rate. Now the N size here is a little small. 7 is as small as I was willing to go here. And I basically just did it because I thought the Palpatine thing was worth noting, is that people playing Palpatine tended to do well. But again, that's a really small sample size, so let's look at some other things with larger sample sizes that did well. We see Anakin. 11 people took Anakin, and 55% of the peeps of 6 people out of those 11 advanced, which is, I would say, is statistically significant. And this is a big one, DLT Rebel Troopers. And by the way, if you click in here, normally you can see the formulas for how this is done. The way that I wrote the Rebel Trooper stuff, I had to go in and do this one by hand. So it's just got the numbers in there, FYI. And then Operative Luke was hugely popular and had a nice advancement rate. People running clones with heavies are still doing well. Dewbacks did really well. Chewie surprisingly did really well. And this is Chewie just for Rebels. I separated him out. The Commander version for clones was Chewbacca instead of Chewie in my data. Iden, hugely popular. And then scrolling down, looking at some things that were really popular, like Magna Guards, but didn't actually do that well. Magnas are weird. 52% win rate, but only a 29% advancement rate. And then the DSDs in 31 lists, that's a lot. 48% win rate, only 26% advancement rate. So yeah, you can flip through this on your own and kind of see what else you think is interesting. Cassian did not do very well, especially compared to last season. Cassian did really well. Wookiees, less advancement than maybe you would have expected, except for the Wookiee warriors for Gar. And I did, as a side note, I split them out based on the 4 different types of Wookiees. So there's Wookiee warriors, Wookiee freedom fighters, Wookiee defenders, and then there were only 4 people that took the Wookiee resistance, the rebel ranged version, and so I didn't include it in here, but those 4 players did extremely well. So I want to show you how you can look into the data yourself to do that. So if you click into the round robin data, first of all, you can press Control F, of course, and search for whatever you want. But you also, up on your screen, when you look at this, you'll have an option in the upper left to create a temporary filter. If you create a temporary filter and then highlight the first row to create that filter, you're going to be able to sort it just like you see me sorting it. So I'm the owner of this document, so I can sort it however I want, blah, 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 blah. But you can do that too without messing it up for everybody by doing that. So I want to show you how well the Wookiee resistance did. So there were only, you can see it's 1 of 4, so there are only 4 players that took it. But here we see that, who is this? JDG Nielsen advanced as a 4-1 with the Wookiee resistance. He had one single unit with the bowcaster. And then here, a double bowcaster with Shash Katoon 5-0'd it in his, and then double bow Wookiee resistance, Lord of Paper Towel advanced 5-0, and he was in my group. And then only one of them didn't advance. It was a Lando Wookiee resistance double bow, that was Barur, but he still went 3-2. So that's, I mean, like, he had a positive record and was just in a tough group and didn't advance. So I want to highlight that the rebel players running the ranged Wookiees might be on to something. and maybe we should be paying attention to that because they did extremely well, but it was a really small sample size. So anyway, you can sort through this, you can search for things. Something that I was a little bit surprised at this time around was the number of naked shores. So if we look at all the lists that have shores in them, if it says double T21, that means it's 2 units of shores with the heavy weapon, but all these like shores double just so that they can get the mortar. That was really popular, especially with Iden. Iden was extremely popular for the Empire. And then the Stormtroopers with the T21s was also something worth bringing up. T21 Storms, really, really popular. So double T21 here, double T21, double T21, double T21, Penta T21, Quad T21, Triple T21. Those did really well. But there is this group down here that had a bunch of Storms that had T21s and DLTs and T21s. It didn't advance as well, so it wasn't by any means a guarantee. A lot of the Penta T21s did not advance. So it seems like just having a few T21s, people tended to do better. Let's see. I'll wrap it up here in a moment. There's something else I definitely wanted to show you. It was the same thing for the vets. Lots of people took vets to get the medium blaster, but only 3 of them advanced. Only 3 players who used vets advanced. Most of the vet players are down here in the I did not advance group, which surprised me. I didn't expect that. And look at the Rebel Trooper list that did advance. The ones that did the best took the most DLTs, Penta DLTs, Quad DLTs. Lots of people who advanced with Rebel Troopers had mass DLTs, and then the group that didn't advance tended to have, on average, fewer DLTs, all these double DLTs, or didn't use the DLT and instead used other stuff. So that was interesting. There were very few heavies, literally 4 AATs, none of them advanced. 7 ATSTs, I want to say none of them advanced. Yeah, none of them advanced. 3 Persuaders, 1 advanced. Only 6 buses, and only 2 of them advanced. What are the other heavies? There's more. Oh, here was the big shocker. Airspeeders. What the heck, guys? Double airspeeder I think is still good, but only 2 people ran. 1 person ran single airspeeder, 1 person ran double airspeeder, and neither one of them advanced. Oh no, I'm a liar. It did advance. Missouri advanced with double airspeeder, so I take it back. But still, I was pretty surprised at how few airspeeders there were. Okay, well that's how you do that. You can look through here. You can find your own, make your own observations and share them in the Discord, share them on Facebook, share them in the comments, and I'd love to hear. The goal is, of course, to learn more so we can be better players. So that's where I'm at. I hope that was useful to you. I hope the spreadsheet is useful to you, and I look forward to hearing your additional thoughts about it and seeing you in the next season 4, Invader League Season 9. And also watching some of you play in singles. I won't be playing in singles with you this year, but I look forward to watching those of you who made it into singles. So, all right, take care. Have a good one. Bye.